Our first speaker is Mr. Gyanendra Kumar. Gyanendra is a veteran HR professional with varied experience in areas like leadership management, succession planning, performance management, and business HR. He specializes in the area of sales leadership. He is one of the initiatives was awarded the branded Hall Gold in 2015. His topic is HR 2.0 in new normal.
Yeah, so thank you, Lucky. Thank you, the entire organizing committee, to take this initiative and do this event, irrespective of all the limitations and in this virtual environment. Thank you to Professor Kamlesh and Dr. Chitranjan for setting the context. And in fact, I was wondering when I was listening to Professor Kamlesh that had this been a pre-talk, I think my script would have been already ready. All the pointers that he touched upon is everything that today a HR professional is thinking about. And every item in that list needs to be addressed in some form or the other, right? So my narrative today during this talk is to highlight that this new normal is not new. And this new normal will not be new. Hence, the way we look at it, we'll have to look at some foundational practices which will have to go on and which will have to work as organization, as individuals. And there will be tweaks and changes depending on how the situation has changed. Both are important, right? So I'll just draw your attention to, just a minute, to this concept of Black Swan. I'm sure all of you have heard about this concept of Black Swan, which was popularized by Nassim Taleb in his book Black Swan about 15 years back, right? So Black Swan, he highlighted, is nothing else but unpredictable events which hit your life with severe consequences, right? And the unique thing about Black Swan is that these events are rare, they have severe impact, and the most important part is they are obvious in the hindsight. Once it happens, we wonder, why didn't we think about this, or why were we not prepared about this? You can look at any of the events in the last 100 years, right? And how he came to this name was basically, the Westerners had this belief for centuries and ages that the swan is only of one color, that is white. And interestingly, all these bird watchers, one fine day, while exploration in Australia in about 1700s, they spotted a black swan. And though it was a very pleasant surprise, but this observation itself illustrated a very severe limitation of observation, experience, and fragility of the knowledge that we have, right? The way one single observation could change the entire thought process of the mankind in terms of how this species exists is what the essence of this black swan. So the scope of black swan events ranges, from World War I to economic crisis to natural disasters to everything. So whether it is Spanish flu or it is SARS, all this, nothing is new. Hence, COVID as such, I would say is nothing which is not expected. And events like this, whether related to nature, climate, or environment, it is just question of anticipating. It is just question of being ready for that. So my message is very simple, that it is not important to try and predict these events, because that is a futile effort. However, it is very critical to build up the resilience in an organization, to build up the resilience in your people, to be able to sustain the initial impact of these black swan events, and then be able to respond gradually as per a planned strategy. So you would have noticed even during this time, starting March when this COVID, in fact, not March, January onwards, when the entire thing started, you would see across industries, across organizations in similar industries and across people, the way they have responded and come out of it or coming out of it has been different and have been at different level of quality, right? Same industry, different companies have produced, varied results, and the way they have brought up this organization to face this dilemma. Even in 2008, if you remember financial crisis, immediately after the crisis, there were about bunch of small companies who were able to produce close to about 10 to 15% of profits in 2 quarters time, vis-a-vis most of the companies who went down close to about 15% to 35% in their revenues immediately after the impact. So it is a clear indication in terms of how you're responding to these black swan events is going to decide how your organization is going to fare in future. Now, to plan for post-pandemic world, the businesses and all the professionals here will have to understand what your stakeholder behaviors will look like post the pandemic. Because what is going to happen is there are some behaviors which are going to return to the pre-crisis times. Some will get totally transformed and some will disappear, right? So for example, if you see 9/11 as a black swan event, when the 9/11 happened, immediately after that incident, most of the people were very, very, very about traveling by air. In fact, the data says still about 4% of the people world over just refused to fly after that and didn't take to planes. Same was about hotels. People didn't want to stay in hotels, and gradually the confidence built up and everything happened. Okay, so those are the events, those are the behaviors which got sustained over a period of time. Now you look at changes like, what happened after 9/11 was the entire security apparatus in airport got totally changed. There was a huge investment by businesses on security and building up screenings, protocols, and everything else. The entire business industry related to security just popped up because that was the need of the hour. And that was the transformation in the behavior which happened. And likewise, you also see, because of the security, today when you fly, you are not permitted to carry a beverages or a bottle of water or coffee inside an aircraft. So what did it lead to? It led to reducing the number of shops post the security inclusion in an airport, right? So if you look around your businesses and your industries and try to see where are the areas where the stakeholders, whoever, whether it's your people, your customer, whoever, where are the areas where the behaviors are getting sustained or will remain sustained, where it will get transformed totally, and where it is going to collapse, will give you a very, very good idea in terms of what to do and how to prepare. So if you look at COVID today, the things which are obviously emerging are things like tech adoption. Now you would have heard from a lot of leaders to say that the tech adoption by companies, whether it is cloud, AI, or whatever, which was planned for 5 years to 7 years by an organization, has got telescoped to 6 months. The cloud migration for companies was a 5 years view, 3 years view, and very gradual as you're going ahead. Right? However, the entire thing changed. You see, the way tech companies today are interacting with business. Earlier, the tech companies used to target the IT and the tech budgets of the businesses. However, the entire landscape has changed now. Now the entire business models, people have realized, need to be based on technology, which has its own resilience to sustain events like this. Hence, today, if you see, tech leaders are not only talking to CIOs, CTOs of companies, they are interacting with CFOs and CEOs to give them an idea how can they transform their entire business based on technology. Similarly, if you look at succession planning, the message is very clear that become very critical, because during such times, you would realize that number of new roles will pop up, which will require leadership at a different level. There'll be a lot of leaders around you who will need support and need hand to sustain through. Another thing which is emerging and which was very obvious was the supply chain across businesses. A lot of businesses realize that this is the weak link and it needs to be addressed to make sure that it doesn't get impacted the way it has got impacted now. You'll see the skill dynamics, the skills which were relevant pre the crisis, during the crisis, and post the crisis will undergo major change. Same job requiring 2 or more skills to be completed may become the norm. Many skills which were in the backdrop, which come in the forefront and will become very, very applicable. The entire concept of employer value proposition. What was important to an employee pre-COVID and what will be important to an employee post-COVID or any such event has totally transformed. In terms of, for example, how is he looking at his employer? What is the kind of trust that the employer or the organization have been able to build for their employees during these trying times? There have been organizations who have laid off people, they were not supported people, were not stood by them, vis-a-vis organizations which have stood with them and said, okay, let me hold their hand at this time. Let me prepare for better times to come. Now that changes the entire dynamics of how the employee engagement is looked at, what Professor Kamlesh was talking about. It is also about how the entire culture of an organization is created to make sure that events of this sort are taken care in the optimal manner. Then you look at concept of death of distance, what was being talked about in 1990 when the web became so prevalent and everything else. And again, we are going back to distance is back phenomena. The way we are interacting today, ideally we should have been sitting in some room, some conference hall and having this discussion. You see the protectionist ideologies of organization, which are increasing the distance between people and organizations. So all these trends are emerging. What is also emerging is that efficiency and resilience go hand in hand. In fact, resilience of an organization is, if not more, equally important as efficiency of your businesses. And hence your focus has to be in that direction. You will see government interventions and regulations in controlling your businesses, in guiding your businesses and guiding people around businesses is a huge trend which is emerging. And obviously the art and science of possibility of what is the limit that an employee, what is the limit that a human being can bear and come out of when he's pushed against the wall. So hence, if you look at the HR focus related to these emerging trends will all be directed in a manner so that organizations of the future are ready to sustain and absorb such shocks. And once sustained, they are able to surge and take the business to new levels as the things become better. And one of the very important aspects of this will be talent. In fact, I would say most critical would be talent. Talent would be the key differentiator for any organization in the future. And you see, look at the talent paradox.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Gyan here. Are you changing slides? Because we are seeing the same slide. I hope there's no glitch happening.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You can't see this. Okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I think you can see the slides.
Yeah, now we can see.
Okay. So a very important part would be talent paradox, as talking about. On one hand, you have millions of people unemployed. And on the other hand, you have your businesses saying that you don't get the right people for the right job. So the direct indication is in terms of how you upskill your people, how quickly you upskill and reskill people. How effectively and how efficiently do you interact with academia interface to prepare the talent which is going to flow into your organizations? The sourcing of your talent, the focus on homegrown talent is going to increase big time. And you are seeing the kind of investments the organization are ready to make today to grow the homegrown talent. The focus on attrition retention with a new lens in terms of making sure that you don't lose high pods, high performers in times like this, and you are able to retain them because they are the ones who are going to help you tide over such difficulties. Talent segmentation in organization is going to become very critical in terms of being very clear about what are the segments of skills which exist in your organization, what are the levels of experience and grades, segregate them based on skills, experience, capability, aspirations, geographies, and take take calculated decisions in terms of how you deploy and how you use them. Talent demand. Today, it may not be too obvious, but if you look at this map, you'll get a fair idea about how the demand, supply, and how the talent mismatch in terms of supply and demand is going to play out in years to come. You see geographies like Japan, geographies like Russia, geographies like parts of Europe, where there's a huge talent deficit which is getting created, whether it's because of the demographics, whether it's because of the lack of skill set, whether because of lack of focus on digital skills. On the other hand, if you look at countries like China and India, where the talent surplus is getting created, and this is going to play out in a big way in terms of how fungible your talent is going to be in future, how the talent movement is going to happen across geographies and opportunities are going to get created. So this demand supply is going to play up in a very, very big way. Another thing which has become very evident during this pandemic is the use of data by the HR professionals. Now, the fact that every insight, every decision is based on very credible data which has come from employees, the decisions are focused, directed, and very meaningful. And in fact, I would say this data-driven approach by HR, which was a focus area even earlier, but this has got really accelerated during these times and has helped the HR professional to move from the back seat to front seat, and they are taken as a critical strategic partner in any organization when a decision is being taken. In fact, there are predictions to say in future, in times to come, there'll be a number of CHROs who will be in a position to take on CEO roles, because the workforce analytics, workforce data, which is getting generated, the insights generated from there are helping organizations to take very meaningful decisions. Performance management, Professor Kamlesh spoke about, the entire outlook to how the performance is managed. Obviously, there is distance between your managers, your reviewers, and the performance is not going to be linked on your screen time or the amount of time you're online. How you make your entire process a very continuous continuum wherein you are interacting on a regular basis and giving feedback on regular basis on performance of your employees. That's a whole new paradigm. Gig is going to play out in terms of organization tapping all gig workers. And coupled with that is the regulatory mandates which are being played across geographies. You would have recently seen in UK, the courts have already spelled out that a Uber worker is going to be taken as a full-time employee. And linked to that are all labor regulation which come into play, which are very, very important. And same thing is going to play in other areas as well. Uber is just a start. Wellness and flexibility. Everybody has realized that importance of physical, mental health, well-being is critical. Everybody has realized the importance of giving flexibility to your employees in terms of where he works, how he works, as long as the outcomes are assured, right? So there are organizations which are not only looking at work from home, they are looking at work from anywhere models. There will be organizations who will not look at only work from home or work from office. There'll be hybrid models which in play. So you come to office 1 day in a week, 2 days a week, 25% of your workforce is present in office at any given point of time. 25% of your retail infrastructure is, real estate infrastructure is occupied at any given point of time, and whole lot of initiatives in that direction. And obviously, this entire effort by the government and academia to make sure that the country which has adequate population, which has adequate people, are keeping in pace with the skill requirements of the times which are relevant, will be hugely in play and will be very important. So to conclude, I would say that organization will prepare themselves and tweak their policies to make sure that they sustain these hits which happen at wrong times, but will keep working in the direction so that they are able to leverage and optimize when the markets open up, situations become better, so that they can be right in forefront. There'll be changes, there'll be huge amount of adaptations, and internally there'll be huge amount of cultural change which will go on. The outlook for leadership will change, the priorities for leadership will change, our appreciation for each other in terms of empathy, how we look at each other, how we look at employees, and how we meet their aspiration, not only as a theoretical subject, however, the aspiration and the needs which are real time and very, very, very concrete. For example, during pandemic, I read somewhere that in one organization, in initial months, the CEO himself loaded his SUV with office chairs and went to his employees and delivered the chairs. Now that is the kind of engagement which is honest and genuine, which will really be very significant in times to come. I'd be happy to take questions if you have any. Thank you, Lucky.
Thank you, Gyanendra. It was a wonderful insight with a lot of data and a lot of thoughts about what's happening in the current situation, and we need to surge back. Any questions from audience?
Yes, I would like to ask a question. Thank you. It was really nice, and a lot of very, very relevant and subjects were touched, and you went at the depth of it. So that was great. So I was just reading one of the article where one of the HR IT company, HRMS and all, they were talking about already we have got 70% automation in HR, and 30% is left out, which is turning more and more strategic HR these days. And time to come, they were talking about now in future, maybe 3 years or 5 years down the line, it would be 90% things in HR would be automated. Like, for example, you record a training and training would be displayed, as per the suitable timing. So this is there's a huge subject. What an HR professional or a training, professionals like us, we are going to do. Do you have any thought on this? What would be the role of how we would be doing those value addition? The way we say as an HR person, a lot of things would be automated. So he need to learn to, read in the eye of a the prospective candidate while hiring. Yeah. So those judgment and those things, would play a bigger role than doing those usual things, because usual things anyways would be done by machine more and more, time to come. So if you can kindly, give some light on these things, like what a training, what do you think, or maybe other participant may also contribute on this, because we all are from a similar area of working. So what do you feel as a trainer or as a training manager? What would be the evolved job in the new scenario? Yes, please.
Thank you, Shalabh.
Yeah.
And question is very relevant, and it's not only about HR. You see the entire automation, and there are two schools of thoughts on this in terms of how automation is going to take away jobs and make a lot of people unemployed. Vis-a-vis the second school of thought, which thinks that more and more jobs are going to get created, right? So as you rightly put it, what is going to happen is all the transactional and repetitive kind of jobs which HR was doing, that is going to get automated. And not only automated, it's going to throw up some wonderful insights through the data, which will be qualitatively used by HR professionals to bring in the human touch element and bring in the quality interaction with the employees. So you see, I'll give you an idea. While this entire exercise of automation happened in the initial days of COVID, the most impactful thing which we noticed, at least in our organization, was the fact that out of 4.5 lakh people, almost 4 lakh people were virtually connected with by our HR professionals across geographies. And the fact that an employer received a call from an HR professional to ask him, how are you? How's your family? And how are you doing? What need do you need? What help do you need? And what can you do? It had a major impact across the employee base. So what is going to happen is, and this is actually, and you all are HR professionals, you'll agree, this is a common crib that HR professionals have, that 90% of their time is actually spent in transactional activities. And that is why we are not strategic in what we do. And this is not what we studied in our MBA institutes, and this is not what we aspired for. We are strategic leaders. We want to think, implement, deploy, and see the outcome, right? And that is their aspiration. They are as much an employee, right? That's their aspiration. And that is where this entire model of combination of high touch and high tech will go as we progress in future, is my thoughts.
I have one question regarding because virtual making less human touch, how we will take care of the motivation part of the employee while working from home?
You're right, sir, absolutely. The face-to-face can never be replaced by virtual. That is a fact. And it is not only about the employee engagement. We are also seeing a similar thing in the sales activities across geographies. So it will always be, virtual is obviously a substitute, and hence the organization will ultimately come to the hybrid models, wherein you come and connect with your teams on, as the need arises. You connect with them on regular basis, and definitely that is going to happen. But yes, the frequency is going to reduce. The flexibility is going to be in the hands of employees themselves, the hands of function people, whether you're in sales or wherever you're working, depending on what is the criteria. Now, if you see the sales landscape today, in the initial days, a lot of customers felt that the virtual meetings were as effective as the face-to-face meetings were. However, as we are going along, there are mixed feedbacks started coming. So there'll be no black and white, but yes, that flexibility and that autonomy to choose how you want to operate to be most effective will be in play. And you can never take away the the meat of face-to-face interactions.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I think even since Gyan, you are heading the HR of TCS CBO, I'm sure you must be having a lot of plans on how to handle this hybrid situation, because TCS, as I have heard in the market, that TCS has decided to put, I think, 75% of their employees work from home, and it's like, I think it's the phrase 25% by 25 to 2025, 25% of employees would be only working from office. I think the challenge for HR increases a lot, and there has to be a good plan to face that, to overcome that.
Absolutely, Lucky. In fact, you're bang on. And in fact, you would have seen in media, TCS also talking about something called as you mentioned rightly, 25 by 25 by 25. And what it actually means is by 2025, only 25% of the people in the organization will have to come to office and spend their time. And spend their time only 25%, say in a week. So you come 1 day, 1.5, 2 days in a week and come to office as the need be, right? So the point is not that the offices are going to close, but this is going to be a very, very flexible model wherein you look at how you're going to be most effective. And in the initial days, you had seen the tech really helped us to get grips of how things were happening, and we learned as we moved along to make sure that we are optimal as we go ahead. And the toughest part for an organization, at least for IT organization, I can say, was to bring in that amount of confidence to your customers, across businesses, to say that we will be able to do it. We'll do it in a secure way. And give confidence to your employees that we are standing with you. Don't get deterred by what you're hearing in the media. We will come out of it and we will make sure that our customer succeeds. And hence, we also move in the right direction.